Alright, so I've added colliders to the walls here. They have no physics material or anything. They're just colliders, mesh colliders for these, and primitive colliders for pretty much everything else. The ball has a rigid body on it, and its rotation is constrained because it was just going all around. But you can see more generally how a character would walk around. This has a collider, a box collider around the whole thing, so that the player can't actually fall down. We don't want that to happen. And yeah, so we can move around and all the good stuff. So now I'm going to add a regular human character, and we're going to do that with the human plus barbarian package characters. So that's going to be down here in the human base. We'll start with that. Then we'll just take the prefabs. We'll use the male to start, and we're going to make this work with both male and female. But we'll use the male body to start, so we're just going to bring that into the scene right here. And we are going to expand that. And we've set up the character here to allow you to add as many or as few clothing options as you'd like. In the future, we hope to have many more heads and a wardrobe for various classes of characters, beyond barbarian. So the way we set this up is each part has its own bone structure, and we just need to attach this bone structure to that to make the animations work. And so we're going to add we're just going to do head A for each of them, but we're going to add the female body as a child of this male body, and then we're going to do the head A for each of them as well as a child of that, and we're going to give them some clothes as well. And so in the barbarian section, the prefabs, and maybe just the skirt and the belt, and some boots, and I'll speed up the video for this. And once you have those on, all the different parts you have on, we have this script up here, just the equip character script. Just click that, and we'll attach all those bones. They're gone now because they're attached to this main character. It also creates a equip characters right here, a prefab for you. Alright, so I've equipped the character, and I've turned off the female version for now, and we'll create a script that allows the user to toggle between male and female. Now we need to make this character animated. So we need our standard things, our rigid body, and we'll freeze the rotation on the X and Z, and a capsule collider. Make sure we set that properly. He's about 2 meters tall, so we'll center at 1 and height 2. Width is probably a little bit too much, so let's bring that radius down to 0.35, maybe 0.4. We can always adjust it later. Alright, and now we need to add the basic animations. So in our animator, we're going to do a few things. First, I'm going to create a new state from the blend tree. We're going to call this Locomotion. So let's just go in here, down here, call this Locomotion. That means movement. And we're going to add a few motion fields. And inside these fields, we're going to bring in our locomotion animations. So we're going to start with idle. We actually only need 3. We do have a walk backwards, but the character here is not going to be walking backwards, not with the setup we have. So we're just going to do idle, walk, and run. And so when the parameter, which we're going to rename movement speed with a lowercase, when movement speed is set to 0, then it will be idle, walk will be 0.333, and run will be 0.666. And you know what, I'm going to actually change that, not automate that. We're just going to do 0.5 for the walk and 1 for the run, walk and run. Okay, so let's go back to our base layer here, and aside from that, we need some basic attacks and whatnot. And back to our base layer. Let's set up some triggers here. Now, if you notice, his hands are open like that, and that's fine for now. Well, we're going to later have to deal with the hands closing when he is holding a weapon and whatnot, but for now, we'll leave that as is. And let's set up some movement for him. Alright, so we have the human player in here. As you can see, as I move my mouse around, the player will move towards the mouse. There's a slight bit of a increase and decrease in the speed. As I let go, it slows down to 0, and he basically walks towards the direction of the mouse when it's being clicked. And if I press the P button here, it switches to the female character. There's the male and the female, and they're on the same object, so I can just hit P to go back and forth between the two. So let me show you how this is accomplished. It's pretty straightforward. We have a few new scripts here on the player object. Let's start with the gender switch. It starts out as male, and male is true down here, and then we have our male objects and female objects. When the player hits the P key, we're going to call switch gender. That switches the boolean of is male to be the opposite of whatever it currently is, and then it cycles through the objects. If it's male for the male, it'll set the objects to true, otherwise to false, opposite for the female. Very straightforward. We have the parts right here separated, and the females are already turned off by default. So that's pretty simple. They're in the arrays right here. Next we've got the, well, let's do the camera follow actually. We got the main camera here. We have a simple follow script here we're following transform, and we have an offset. The offset, actually, I'm going to change the default here to match what I ended up using, 1.50, and that's a global offset from the transform we're following. And then in the late object or late update, which avoids issues with the other movement, causing like little jitters in the camera movement, we'll change our position to be the object's position that we're following plus the offset. That's straightforward as well. And next we have the player movement. It's a little less straightforward, but still pretty easy to get your head around. I'm going to add more comments to these, but we have our speed change. That's how fast or slow the character will increase or decrease their speed. Camera angle. This is the angle at which the camera is to the player. Currently it's set to -90. I just guessed at that and got it right. Close that out. I just guessed at that and got it right. If you wanted to add a rotating camera thing, then you could. You might want to. You'd have to basically figure out what the current camera angle is and use that. But for now, we're not going to be doing that. And the rotation speed of the player. Currently, it's set to 2 rotations in a second, so it takes a half second to rotate 360 degrees. We have our character animator as well right here. So if the mouse button is down, it's the left mouse button, then we're going to allow, or we're only going to freeze the rotation on the X and the Y. And then later on the mouse button up, we're going to freeze all the rotations. That way the character doesn't accidentally start spinning with any force and physics and whatnot. And on the mouse button down, we're going to check mouse button stay. Mouse button stay, we're going to increase the speed to 1. That's a simple math function. Move towards our current speed. We want to go to 1. Our speed change times delta time. And then we're going to update speed to 1. We actually don't need this at all. So that's redundant. So on mouse stay, we're going to update speed to 1.0. I'll write that since it is a float. And here we go. Right. So on mouse stay, we're going to update speed to 1.0. And if that's only if the mouse button is down. If the mouse button is not down, we're going to update speed to 0.0. Now I'm keeping this in a different function just in case I want to do something else while the mouse is down. Same with the mouse down and mouse up. I could move these up here, but instead I want to have some options for the future. And then if the speed is not 0, we're going to check the rotation. This is the only part that really has any real math. We first get the joystick center, which is where we are touching the screen width divided by 2. So that's really screen center, I should say. Screen center. That's more appropriate. So the screen center is the screen width divided by 2 and screen height divided by 2. And then that's theoretically where the player is. We keep the player in the center. The joystick difference, this is going to be the mouse position divided or subtracted minus the screen center for both X and Y. The touch angle, this is the math. I don't know exactly what it's doing here, but it's doing something with trigonometry. And then it gets us a degree from the radian that this produces, and we add our camera angle, currently -90, and that's our new touch angle. And then we're going to get our new angle, which is a math function move towards angle. This is a function that will fix any issues with the 0 to 360 degree problem. And from our current angle to our touch angle, which is the angle that my mouse is compared to the character, and with our rotate speed, and then we set that right there. So that's all it does pretty much. We have more to do now, now that we can move around. That's very exciting, but we need to, oh yeah, that's much smoother. Yeah, but we need to do more with the character. We need to set the hands proper. They're currently always open. We need to add some weapons and maybe a shield, and then go from there, and maybe add some chests and stuff. So there we go.